The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers. To get yourself sweet perks such as early access to all of our episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more, head over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers today and consider lending support to the show. Without further ado, let's hop into the show.
Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to episode 139, 138, whatever, of the Reformed Gamers, a show all about theology, video games, raiding tombs. For a second time on the show, I've lost count. I'm your host, Logan. How are you, dear listeners?
I am his co-host, Adam. Whoa.
Here's the thing, man. It's been a while since we've done this. The days and the weeks seem to go by slower, and they seem to last longer when we don't record. It feels like forever. I feel like when we meet up, I have to ask you, how are the kids doing? How's little Ren's softball going? Is she doing well, you know?
Well, it's like we're inconsistent together. It's that season, like these next couple months, it's just there's a lot going on in my world, and I know your world's always running fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so schedules get crazy. Usually during the summer and the fall, consistency is easier, but this late spring, early into summer is just kind of a crazy time of the year as the university's closing and whatnot. So, yeah. When we do, it's great because I always have a ton to talk about what I've been playing because I usually miss an episode here and there. But it also takes a little bit of the rat-a-tat away.
Rat-a-tat? Like the beast machine?
You're the rat-at and I'm the tat-at.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I'm the rat-at, you the tat-tat. Now I'm thinking of Pokemon. Isn't there a Pokemon named Rat? Yeah, Rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta.
It was a crappy one that you always got in Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you saw a lot of it in Pokemon Go.
Billion of them everywhere. Our world is infested with Rattatas.
It's weird. How do you even pronounce it? Dear listeners, let us know how you pronounce that because I'm not going to try and do it on the show here because we got into some housekeeping. Funny thing, I went to a ministry conference a couple weeks ago, went to a social media breakout. Learned about this one app called Buffer that does a really good job of scheduling your posts and managing all your social media accounts. So I was like, hey, I'm going to use that for the podcast. And so I got it. Had to connect to Instagram button. I was like, sure, I'll add my personal Instagram on there, or at least my church's, to see how that works. And then my autofill was like, hey, here's the Reformed Gamers one. I'm like, when did we have an Instagram? Was that a thing at one point? And so I just clicked it, and then boom, it unlocked our Instagram back up. And I'm like, I didn't know this existed. We didn't use this since 2015. I guess I'll bring it back. And so, hey, we're on Instagram again for the first time in 2019. So go follow us at the Reformed Gamers. I'm going to tone it down on my post. I was doing 3 a day for the past couple days. I'm like, it's a little overkill. We don't need to do that. I'll do stories, fun times, things like that. So go follow us on Instagram. Also, in case you missed it, twitch.tv/the Reformed Gamers. In our archive, there should be 2 streams of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Go check those out. Have fun with it because it coincides with this episode because that's what we're going to be talking about. In case you hadn't noticed by the music, in case you hadn't noticed by the title of the episode, it's what we're going to be listening to. They're not listening to, talking about, playing. You get the idea. Over on Twitch, you can go watch it. And if you don't have the game yourself, Adam, good sir, let's just jump into it. Hello and welcome to the Reformed Gamers, the show all about Adam. What have you been playing, man?
It's about what I've been playing. This is Power Hour with Adam talking about
the Power Hour.
So yeah, I've been playing video games. It's been kind of
I've been playing video games. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, I have been playing video games. It's been kind of hit or miss. Again, with spring break, missing last episode, being away from my PS4 and so on. And then there was a weird couple days where I knew I wasn't going to get a lot of gaming time in. So I'm like, what can I just jump in and out of and try to make some, make some work and get further in the game. Words are hard. So because of that, and trying to just move forward in games, I actually finished Unravel 2. This was actually a game I didn't think I would ever finish it. It was a game I originally got so that Hannah and I could play it together, and we played the first 3 levels, and then we had a baby, and then we play no games together anymore. Sad day. But
you guys played the
I was
parenting
playing
game.
this week, and I was like, man,
Who
this
changes the diaper?
This game's a lot easier when I'm playing by myself. And so,
Oh gosh! Don't tell Hannah.
just being honest. And so I'm like flying through levels. I'm like, yeah, some of the puzzles probably would have been easier if I didn't have to keep switching back and forth. But I ran through the last 4 levels in probably 30, 40 minutes a level. And so
wow.
I finished it this weekend. And it's actually, I mean, it's a pretty interesting game. There's kind of like a little background story going, and you don't really understand why the second unravel character, Yarny, I think is what they call it, has shown up. There is kind of there's like a little message at the end of the game. I don't want to say it's like bad, but it's kind of like we're all different. We need to love each other. We all need to be accepting. And I'm kind of like, whatever. Again, I'm not gonna say everything you're saying is wrong, but it was kind of out of
But
left field. I
next.
didn't see it coming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a cute game. So if you're looking for a co-op game, it's actually a decent couch co-op. It's got some decent puzzles. There's some collectibles. I didn't do any really of those things. There's some challenge levels, I think. But yeah, it's a fun little co-op game if you're looking for a couch co-op. Also, in my absence, I finished that old Kingdom Hearts 3. And man,
Oh, well, how was it?
what a story that was. There were twists, there were turns, there were random Final Fantasy characters that showed up. There were
Mm-hmm.
multiple iterations of the same person somehow who I
Okay.
don't know if they were Horcruxes or what, but he had split his soul into all these other peoples.
Wait.
It got weird, but I finished it.
Sounds weird.
I finished it. The game. So the amount of time that you spend in each world kind of I felt like dwindled. So your first couple levels, especially Toy Story, the toy box, I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
was in that level way longer than any other level. And then I felt as you continue on, you kind of spent less time in each level. Like the last level you're in is I think the Big Hero 6 level. What are they?
Okay. Yeah.
San Fran Tokyo or something like that. San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't spend a ton of time in that world. And then the last like 4 hours is spoiler a little bit of spoilers here kind of. So if you're planning on
Okay.
playing the game or if you're really worried about it, pause me for a few minutes. But it's basically just boss fights. And so there's no real chance to I mean you're leveling up some in fights, but it's basically boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, which is cool. There's some pretty long cutscenes. Again, I started skipping some of them because I'm like, you can sit here and talk and I'm still going to have no idea what's going on. And for the sake of my wife, I'm just trying to finish this game.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's some heartfelt moments at the end, there's no doubt. They bring in some of the characters and you have to save some of your friends and so on. Again, spoilers, but I'm glad I played it. Is it the best game I've played? No, because I don't know what was going on in the story. But the nostalgia was great. The worlds looked great. The animation was great. The combat was fun. There was like chaos going, but I knew what the chaos was, and I felt like I was in control. Now I'm doing a lot of button mashing. I didn't use a ton of magic, but I still had a really good time. I'm glad I finished it, and I've already flipped it and sold it on eBay. I'll never go back to it. I'm like, Hannah, just let me finish this game because you'll never have to experience Kingdom Hearts again. And that was enough motivation for me. Like she let me play it a couple nights in a row just so I'd finish. She was like, I
Just
just
get
want
it
this
over
over.
with.
Exactly. And so she just would laugh at me. I put on headphones. She's like, "Why are you putting on headphones?" I'm like, "Because I don't want to hear you trashing this game while I play it and calling me a major like nerd." She's like, "You're playing with Disney characters." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly, nostalgia." Anyway, so finished it. If you like Kingdom Hearts, you've played the other ones, you might as well play this one. It's very Kingdom Hearts, but the combat and gameplay they're a lot of fun. Oh, also been playing this. So over spring break, I only took the old Switch, and man, I went
Mm,
hard in Hollow Knight.
yeah.
I went
Yeah.
hard.
Tell
And
me about
so
it, dude.
I for the first long time, and I'm gonna let the dear listeners in. I know it's this whole Metroidvania, but eventually, probably about 12 to 15 hours in, I'm like, I need some direction because I don't want to just roam around wasting time. So I did
Mhm.
pull out a walkthrough. So
Oh,
judge me
hey,
all you want, people, just to give
Adam,
myself
real
some.
quick, real quick. You're in good
Yeah,
company. I had to do the same thing, man. It's okay. It's okay.
I
I don't
just
hear
wanted
any of you dear
direction.
listeners. Yeah, I know. I get it. I'm just saying, dear listeners, I don't hear any of y'all ragging on us, okay? We got busy schedules, okay? We can't just wander around in this little bug creepy land
Exactly.
and stuff. Just
Exactly.
can't do it. Can't do it. So Adam, I'm
Can't be
assuming you found a way
wondering if
around the
I'm
place.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to know
Yeah,
that I'm going the right direction. I still have
I
to
get
beat
it.
the bosses.
Yeah, true,
You know,
true.
I still got
As
to
you
get
said, ain't
good.
nobody got time for that. Mm-hmm.
Ain't nobody got time for that. That's like my tagline when it comes to video
Mm-hmm.
games. If it's something that's just wasting my time, I ain't got time for it. I got
Nope.
kids, I got work, I got life, ministry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I mean, is it this game that everyone rants and raves about? Is it the best game since forever? No. It's a good game. Again,
Mm.
extremes. It's definitely not a bad game. Is it the best game, best platformer I've played in a long time? No. Is it better than Dead Cells? Yeah, that game's trash.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Hot take. Hot take. Um, but I mean, it's a really good game. I think the soundtrack is great. The sad part is I played most of it without the volume, just because I was at my in laws. I didn't feel like I could be antisocial and put in headphones and play. So usually we'd be watching something in TV and I'd have it muted. So I hate that I played a lot of it without the sound. But when I did, it was great. I think the combat is good. It's a good mix of challenging, but not like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, where I'm like, I'm never gonna kill this person. It just took a while. I think again, I'm at the final boss, so I haven't quite finished it, but I've just got to get there and kill the Hollow Knight. But
Gotcha.
I think
No,
the
you're pretty close
hardest.
out, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there. I gotta make my way to it. I'm thinking maybe tonight when I go to bed, we'll see after, because I haven't got to spend a whole lot of time with Hannah today. So I'm like, maybe I should not turn on the Switch in bed. But um, yeah, I think the bosses I've had the hardest time with were the Watcher Knights, where there's like five
Yeah,
or six of them that spawn. I'm
yeah.
like,
They give me a lot of
it was
trouble
it
too.
felt almost cheap to me. I'm like, the
Yes, me
fact that I got to
too.
fight two of them, it kind of it was very frustrating for a while. Again, I didn't really consider quitting, but I'm like, it's one thing to make a tough boss, and I get it if it was just one of them, they weren't
Right.
very hard. So
There's
maybe
five
you
of
add a different move set in, but to have two of them at the same time was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but
Just
every
comes out
other
of one.
one I've completed probably in less than five or six attempts. So I felt good about that. For a while, I'm like, everyone said this game's hard. I'm not that good at video games. And so it's got to ramp up. And then I got to the Watcher Nights and I almost threw my Switch out the
Yeah.
window.
I remember I feel like
So
you said something about it somewhere in the group and I'm just sitting there laughing. I'm like, boy, you just wait.
seriously, I'm
You just
like, guys, when
wait.
does this? Am I just that evolved as a gamer that I'm just crushing all of these bosses like it's no
Oh
problem?
man.
And then I will say though that Salt and Sanctuary bosses were more difficult than Hollow Knight's bosses. At me,
Really?
people, at me. Um,
Man. I wasn't
so
gonna play
yeah,
Salt and Sanctuary, but you
I'm
just
not
further
saying
cemented
Salt and
my point.
Sanctuary is a better game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the bosses were more difficult, and because there's a lot of different things going on in regards to like magic and stuff, so they would shoot stuff at you a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more than you have in Hollow Knight. But anyways, I digress. Really enjoying my time, people. It's a really good game, so don't hear me like, oh, Adam's a Hollow Knight hater. No, it's an excellent game. There's a lot of endearing things about it. Who doesn't love the little Hollow Knight running around? He's a cute little character.
He has a cute
I
little
just
character.
don't think it's like the bee's knees.
That's
So
where you're wrong, sir. But okay. It's okay.
and that's fine. I know. Again, send all your hate mail to sixthroman@gmail.com.
Rude. Rude. Just giving out my personal email right then and there. Oh man. Oh man.
Anyways,
I'll let you know if I get any hate mail.
but yeah, lastly, again, I've opened up the Division too. I haven't got much further than that. I've put it in my system.
You just
I've put it in I put it in the system. I'm like an hour and a half in. I was in the middle of my first mission or second mission, and then they're like server maintenance. And as soon as I was killing the final like boss, they kind of have like their bosses at the end of the stinking servers went off, and I lost all my progress.
Dude,
And
that stinks.
I'm like, this really, again, ain't nobody got time for that, Ubisoft.
Nah.
Let me finish offline, and then you can kick me off if you want. But so I went back and played through that mission again today, which was fine. It was still fun, but bitter old man Adam was like, stop deleting my progress.
No, I get it, man. I get it. Been there, done that.
So,
I know how it feels.
So that's where I'm at in the gaming world. I'm focusing up on finishing Hollow Knight, been rocking some Division 2, and then I don't know what's up after that. Days Gone, maybe?
I got that game pre-ordered, man. I'm excited to play it.
Yep.
I'm excited.
How about you? What you been playing?
Well, dear listeners, gather around. Last episode, I talked about playing Final Fantasy IX. Reached a point where I was 10 or 11 hours into the game and realized I'm still not having fun with this game. And so, unfortunately, I have abandoned Final Fantasy IX. There's things about the game I like, and then there's things that I just... there's things I like about the game, and there's things I don't like about the game. But, just came to a point where I'm like, I just don't want to play it anymore. So then I moved on to Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition on the Switch. And also started Ni no Kuni 2 on the PS4. Got about 4 hours in. Actually, I think 4 hours in on both games, now that I think about it. I mean, Tales of Vesperia is a game I played on 360. I mean, nothing much to add. It's like a really old game. Still good. Still great. Love the characters. Ni no Kuni 2, really digging it. That Evan, he's my dude. I like seeing him getting kind of growing into the leader, the king that he has to be. And the part where you come across the space pirates and he kind of stands up to, what's his name, Batu? I'm like, Evan, you get it, man.
Space pirate. Yeah.
I was like, you get it, man. Space pirates? What,
it's
sky
weird
pirates?
He looks like a girl half the time and they call him Evan, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's the ears, though, that make him look like a man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The dog ears. I don't know.
Is he a dog? Is that what he is?
I don't know.
Again,
he said
exactly.
He said that he's part Grimalkian, and I'm like, what even is that? Like, is that part dog? Is that part gopher?
I love the art, though, in Ni no Kuni 2, because you have all these weird animal people everywhere.
It's real good. Reminds me of, is it Spirited Away? I think it's Spirited Away. One of the Studio Ghibli films. But, yeah, cool game. Digging that. I will say the combat is stupid easy. Like, I don't...
Yeah, it ramps up towards the end.
Okay.
But it's definitely not as hard as the first one.
So
the first one requires some grinding. The first one, I bullied my way through. The way that I finished that game was not the way that you're supposed to finish it. It's a long story, but I finished it. But that game the first one was much harder than this one. There wasn't much grinding that I had to do. And I mean, I died some towards the end for sure, but overall, it's like Kingdom Hearts, much easier. Kingdom Hearts 3 is much easier than the first two, and I'd say Ni no Kuni 2 is way easier than the first one.
So what you're saying is I need to use my PlayStation Now subscription, forget this backlog golf business, and play the first Ni no Kuni if I want a real challenge.
The first one. The first one was... The second one was really good, but the first one was fantastic. I like the story, I think, of the first one better, but there's a lot of things in the second one that are better. Like the kingdom building in the second one is good. The change of combat's not bad. It's just different. Right. I think the first one's battle combat system was much more unique than kind of the third person kind of action adventure combat. And so I kind of wish they would have kept it, but the second one's still fine.
Yeah.
And so then you have like the little battles in the fields and stuff like that. I wasn't huge on those. Have you gotten to those yet?
Yeah, I did one because it was like a tutorial one. I'm like, This ain't bad. I like it.
It's not bad, but I didn't go out of my way to do them.
Yeah, I probably will. It's kind of like watching a little fidget spinner moving around when you're moving
It's
the
like a little
characters around.
RTS
Yeah, with a fidget spinner because it's cool.
with the fidget spinner.
But yeah, so enjoying that. I also opened up the Division 2, started it. I didn't realize this until the other night, and I was looking at the time clock in the main menu. I've put apparently like a little over 10 hours into this game already, and I'm like, I played way too many video games for way too long. But yeah, I will say this. It's the same thing I said in the Facebook group. The Division 2 has been a pleasant surprise for me. Very much like biting into what I think is a regular cupcake, only to find Nutella and sprinkles on the inside. It is good. I like the loot drops. I like the controls. There's some weird glitches here and there, but Ubisoft's been on the ball about patching those out, or at least doing some kind of hot fixes to get them out there real quick. The only thing I don't like about the game, of course, I've said this on the stream, don't really care for the amount of cussing in the game. Like, I normally don't mind cussing, but there's a lot of it in this game, and I'm like, just gonna skip all the cutscenes because I don't really care about the story. And the some of the things on there, like, I don't understand how in 2019 we're still developing games where we're making the font or the text or these little icons, literally little icons that you can't even see on my 50-inch TV. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Seriously, that's a problem in the Division, I think, so far.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because they let you change the text size in the options.
Yeah.
But not Ubisoft, you need to fix that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I was trying to answer a call, but I'm like, what button am I supposed to hit? Literally, I had to get up and go stare. Like, I had to get up and walk up to my TV like some old man. And I'm like,
so
what
glad
button
I'm not the only one doing that.
doing? Like, there's the little tutorial stuff. You can't see anything that they're telling you. I'm like, why do you even have this tutorial? I have no idea what it does.
Yeah. It's really, really dumb. It's really, really dumb. But I will say this, though. This is a game that, honestly, I think you almost have to play it with other people. Because anytime I've tried to play it solo, I have hated my experience. But when I play with friends, I'm like, this is ballin'. I like this. We've got 2 drones up. We've got a seeker mine going out. Someone activated their pulse so we can see where everybody is. And we're just like this well-oiled machine of destruction. And it's a blasty blast. Okay? It's a blasty blast. Not just a blast. It's a blasty blast. And so I'm enjoying it. And I really am liking it. So if you guys need a clan or something on PS4, let us know. We'll get you in there and go from there. But I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it. It's, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I'm even enjoying it more than the first one. So I'm kind of surprised by that. But yeah,
I was talking to Hannah and I was saying, like, I said, hey, I got this new game. And she remembers the first Division because there was one time me and my buddy were playing. And we've been playing for maybe an hour and a half. And then we didn't know that we had started a mission. And so we were just kind of exploring. And so we're like 30 minutes in. And we're like, we don't want to just lose this time. So we're like, we need to finish it. And then it was like another hour. And she was very gracious with me when I was doing it. But I'm like, I ended up playing for like 2.5, 3 hours. And she was like, you said it would be an hour and a half. I'm like, I'm sorry, but we can't lose this. And it was like, we were way under leveled, but we somehow finished it. And so it's definitely a good time. And I'm hoping to, and I've kind of asked her, like, hey, maybe once a week, can I get an evening session in with either Logan or some guys? Because, usually I play in the afternoon. So if any of you are afternoon gamers, let me know. It's just hard to connect with people. So I don't want to play it all by myself. But hopefully we can maybe even do a TRG stream or something at some point.
Ooh, there we go. I'd be up for that. A little TRG community game night. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Well, yeah, that about wraps it up, man. So what have you been reading? What you been getting into?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it, but I started a new book recently on Martin Lloyd Jones and the Christian life. So it's written by, I don't remember the guy's name, maybe Perry. I shared it in our Discord. But I'm like just a couple chapters in, and the introduction alone was like banging. It was so good. He's talking about kind of the thesis is doctrine and life are fuel and fire, not oil and water. So kind of the book's going to kind of focus on how our life, the way we live is totally determined by what we believe in our doctrine. And
Mm.
so, and how, if we're balancing those, if our doctrine is affecting the way we live, you're going to experience criticism. Get ready, because you have people who are all doctrine, you have people that are all life and loving people. And so when you're not in one of those poles, which is, I think, is an extremely appropriate thing in our culture right now, because everything is like extreme. You're either with us or you're against us, and that's politics. That's what Mountain Dew is the best flavor. What video? I mean, everyone is like. Again, I talked about earlier. You
It's like
either love it
Twizzlers
or
for
you
kids.
hate it. There's
Yeah.
no room for middle ground anymore. He's talking about how same way with kind of whether you're with doctrine in life, you have all these people that want to emphasize either doctrine or they want to emphasize the way we love people. And he says no, they should be playing together in perfect harmony. And when you do that, there are going to be people that criticize you. Uh, and it's expected. He doesn't say that it's right, but it should be expected. And so it's good. I just finished up kind of a biography kind of his life, and we'll start getting to more of more the doctrine. But what's interesting is apparently Martin Lloyd Jones never wrote a book. Any book that is like by him is basically just a collection of his lectures and sermons. So
Huh. That's
I
cool.
thought that was really interesting, because you hear so much about him, but I guess you don't realize like, oh, he never really wrote a book. He was a great preacher and loved people. And yeah, again, I'm not supposed to talk about that book, but yeah, that's what I started, and I'm excited to continue it. So, but just wanted to share something even out of Hebrews. So I just finished up the book Hebrews, been studying it, feels like forever. But at the end of Hebrews, kind of in the last chapter, Hebrews 11 or 13, verse 7, it says, "Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of God. Consider the outcome of their way of life, and imitate their faith." And so it really got me thinking through, okay, because being in the book of Hebrews, talking about considering all the different leaders of the past, but also those amongst the Hebrew Christian, like the Jewish Christians who have, converted out of Judaism. Like, remember those, because a lot of them had endured persecution in order to share. A lot of them were even martyred. But so consider their life, even their outcome, but most importantly, imitate their faith. And so having the role that I have, and even for you, working with youth, Moeller says this in his commentary on the Christ-centered exposition. He says, discipleship consists of living our lives before others in such a way that they learn from us, not only from what we teach, but also how we live. The leaders, Hebrews 13:7 mentioned, testified to Christ by their manner of life. We should remember the teaching of our leaders, but we should also remember and practice their way of life. These leaders were faithful, and the letters readers were called to imitate that faithfulness. We definitely need this kind of example today. And so it got me really thinking about, I think specifically of my dad, who's been basically my pastor for the majority of my life, and just kind of, has my dad been perfect? By no means. But uh, seeing the way he, it says, consider those who spoke the word of God to you, just being as a pastor slash dad, but also just seeing, as he even he's on the way out in ministry, he's retiring here soon. So it's caused for a lot of reflection, but just seeing his faithfulness, seeing his love for the Lord, the way that he's loved people, and just being super encouraged by that. But even in my role as RD, doing a lot of discipleship, I'm not doing a ton of teaching. I have opportunities with my RAs who do like some Bible study and things like that. But I really think, and kind of been an emphasis, not because of Moeller saying it, but just something we've tried to emphasize was, I live in a fishbowl. As soon as I leave my apartment, man, I've got 200 guys watching how I'm loving my wife, how I'm loving my daughter, how I'm playing sports, how I'm talking about others, how I'm joking with guys. And so that idea of, discipleship consists of living our lives before others in such a way that they can learn from us. Not just what I teach them, but with how I live. And like just a great challenge of even kind of talking about what I just mentioned with Martin Lloyd Jones, not intentionally connecting the two, but you know, teaching people doctrine is definitely necessary, but we also need to be showing them how to live rightly. And so, just even as a challenge to those dear listeners, who think, oh, is it really worth it doing this or that and investing and letting people into your life? Yes, they need people living out an example of how to walk well with the Lord. And if we don't let them into our lives, then how are they going to see it? Um, there's only so much you can get out of a pastor on Sunday. You need people walking with you in life so that you can be an example to them. And so it was just a good encouragement and even challenge as I do my job.
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Well, as far as what I've been reading, I've been taking my students through the book of Ecclesiastes on Sunday mornings in our Sunday school, which I know is like the perfect book to do on Sunday morning.
There's some good stuff in Ecclesiastes.
There is. And it was funny because we started Ecclesiastes 1 like the week that their spring break started. So we start out with vanity of vanities. Everything is vain. I'm like, yeah, that's a great way to start spring break. But you know, it's funny how as a youth pastor, you bring these lessons to kids. Sometimes it's based off of a curriculum that you buy, whatever, that you buy. Maybe you buy a pie too. I don't know. Sometimes it comes from a curriculum that you get from a publisher or something, and you go through it and you're reading it and you're like, dang, this is kind of hitting me hard in my own life. And as I read through this, just kind of going through what King Solomon is going through, talking about just kind of examining things from the worldview of the non-Christian, and how everything is vain. It's kind of pointless. The world comes and goes. The days come and go, and they do their own thing. I'm not going to read the whole chapter to you guys. You guys can pull that up on your Bible and read it for yourself. But just reading through the first chapter about how he's just going over all these things of just how the sun rises, the sun sets, the wind goes where it wants, life comes and goes. There's nothing new under the sun. There's no remembrance of former things. It just got me thinking, like, how much crap do I waste my time on that I don't need to put so much time and energy into, And I've said this before, and people rightly ridiculed me for this. I was like, platinum trophies, I'm done with them. And then literally 3 days later, hey, check out my new platinum trophy. My flip-flops, they're very infamous amongst the podcast community. But it did get me thinking. I'm like, what am I wasting my time on? Like, what am I putting time and energy into that honestly doesn't really need it? And it got me. I didn't go full John Piper on this to where I just completely sold all my video games and was done with video games and ended the podcast and was like, video games are sin. I'm kidding. John Piper doesn't believe they're sinful, but it's just, I don't know. There's something about those first 2 chapters that got me to take a hard look at why I strive after the things I strive for, and really ask the question, am I glorifying God in setting a good example like what you were talking about in doing so? I've got 57 platinum trophies on my PlayStation account. What does that really matter? Does that lead someone to the gospel? No. And so I'm not going to sit here and make it a declarative statement about I'm done with platinum trophies, because I don't want to do that and then I somehow get the platinum trophy for Shadow of the Tomb Raider because I'm playing on the hardest difficulty now. But it just, I don't know, dear listeners, you read through Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and 2 and let's have a discussion on it, because it's just got me thinking hard, thinking critically, and that's where I'll leave it. So Ecclesiastes 1 and 2. Wait, what are we doing? Oh, it's time to get into the topic of the show, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 3rd series in the Tomb Raider reboot, closing out the Origins trilogy of this reboot. Now, as per usual, dear listeners, with these, we're going to break it down with development history highlights, story synopsis, very brief story synopsis, give our just kind of 1-2 KO review, and then we'll get into the themes, which will be more spoilers. So you can listen up to that point there when we get into the themes, or if you don't care about spoilers, you can just keep listening and do whatever you want. Treat yourself. But that's how it's going to go. So we'll let you know spoilers and things like that as we go on. But yeah, that's basically how it works. So here's the thing about the development history of this game here. Let me get my notes pulled up. the development for this game started in 2015, shortly after Rise of the Tomb Raider, this game was headed up by Eidos Montreal instead of Crystal Dynamics, which I think is probably due to Crystal Dynamics working on some unannounced Marvel project. I was hoping to see that today during the Google, whatever, the Stevia or whatever that thing's called. But they worked with Crystal Dynamics to at least kind of keep the theme and the game consistent with the rest of the series. We'll talk a little bit more later about if they nailed that or not. The series has always been known for Lara kind of carelessly raiding tombs, showing little to no consequence of like what happens when she does that. Whereas this game changed all that when the developers actually intentionally showed the consequence of her actions, which is showcased in the first hour of the games when she takes the dagger. Now, this game setting is different than the other two games. This one is definitely more entrenched into the jungle, Mayan themes, so it's definitely more dark. But the jungle setting was meant to be the catalyst of Lara's evolution into a cunning hunter warrior, hence the addition of these really cool stealth sections. And fun fact about those stealth sections, they were heavily influenced by classic films such as Rambo and Predator, which totally makes sense, because anytime I saw Lara get gillied up with mud, I'm like, dude, this is straight out of Predator. I'm waiting for Arnold to come in, waiting for Arnold to be like, get to the chopper, come in. What are you doing? Now, director, and I'm probably going to butcher the director's name, so just heads up. Director Daniel Chair Bisson, probably pronounced that wrong. Director Daniel is what we're going to call him, described redesigning the established level design as a nightmare because they had to take into account player experimentation and potential sequence breaking events when implementing new mechanics such as climbing onto overhangs and using the grappling line. So it was, a lot of work went into it. Now, to remedy the intimidation that the game may present with some of these new elements and just appeasing newcomers to the series, Shadow introduced a unique customization of difficulty that allows you to modify combat, exploration, and puzzle difficulties separately, which allows you to really customize your game experience. Something that me and my wife both actually personally appreciated. It's really, really cool how they handled that. Now, interesting fact about the game, the story was not written by Rhianna Pratchett, who wrote the Tomb Raider reboot and Rise of the Tomb Raider. This was written by Jason Dozoy, I don't know, and Jill Murray. So it definitely, you can, to me, I could tell when I'm playing the game, because it's well, I'll get to it in my review. Now, as far as story synopsis, this is going to be very threadbare. It's literally takes place a couple months after Rise of the Tomb Raider. Lara and Jonah are hot on the heels of Trinity. They're taking it down one by one, different cells of Trinity. And they find themselves in Mexico chasing Dr. Dominguez. And they come to find out that he is the supposed leader of Trinity. And while they're hunting him down, Lara comes across this Mayan ruins where she finds this mural to I think the Mayan god is called Kukulkan, and it details the dagger, the silver box, and then 4 different types of elemental destruction or destructive events. And of course, Lara, Trinity's coming after her to get the dagger, so she takes the dagger, realizes, oh wait, this was probably a bad idea, because again, like I said on stream, you should have put a bag of sand on there. It could have helped. And she runs out, comes to run into Dr. Dominguez. He takes the dagger, tells her, "You've set off the Mayan apocalypse. Now it's up to me to stop it." And then this giant tsunami comes in and just destroys the little town that you were previously walking around in. And Lara feels the weight and the gravity of her actions, and that leads her and Jonah on this journey to stop Trinity, to put a stop to this Mayan apocalypse, and to keep Trinity from gaining control of the world. They're basically trying to Thanos snap the world is what they're trying to do. So that's the story in a nutshell. So real quick, Adam, our reviews, man, what did we think of Shadow of the Tomb Raider?
There was a lot that was pretty good. There was a lot that wasn't so pretty good. I think when you think of the first 2 games in the series, it's impossible not to think of them when you play this game. It's a trilogy. It's not totally dependent on them, but some of how it's going to be judged is how good the other ones were. So you think of the first one, kind of a reboot. Man, it was a surprise. It was so good. I mean, just the tension of Lara when she's killing people for the first time and kind of stranded on this weird island. I thought just a lot of really interesting things. And then you get into the second one, and really the battle with Trinity really gets ramped up. So story wise, you have 1 and 2, just a lot of really excellent writing. Then you get into the third one, again, a lot of high hopes, and it just wasn't what the first two were. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't want to say it was necessarily bad writing. There was still some good tensions created. There's still some good, and we'll talk about some of this later. Some good realizations that she's making. There's some good points in there. There's a lot of plot holes, a lot of things missing. Um, it just didn't seem up to the first two. Now, when it comes to the combat, and I think even the setting, um, now again, I think the setting was still really good. I think I like the old Soviet stuff of the second one,
Mm-hmm.
even better, and even the first one. Okay, we're on some weird deserted island. There was a lot of mystery to it. In this one, okay, you've got some new people group that's never really been engaged, but yet she's figuring out how to communicate with them rather easily. And it's like, huh? Come
Right.
again? They've never been interacted, and she knows how to speak their language. Interesting. Um, and and it was much more restricted. You weren't really exploring a lot of places. I feel like in the first two, and I might be again, the first one's on an island, but I feel like even in the second one, I felt like it was just bigger. I feel like there was more going on. I felt like this one was just smaller in scale. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but while I played it, I enjoyed it. Again, I think the combat wasn't as intense again as I think with the other ones. Now, once you get inside, I guess, kind of spoiler area here, but I guess we're kind of all up in it. Uh, Once you get inside and you're fighting all those crazy people, now that was
Mm-hmm.
some good intense gameplay
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they would
yeah.
come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you die, and like again, Hannah's watching me. If you haven't checked out girlfriend reviews on YouTube, check it out because that's like I need one for wife reviews because Hannah's
Yeah.
like, why are these deaths so gruesome? Because like all of a sudden they'd get me where I'd die like going down a waterfall or something, and it's just so gruesome. And she's like, you need to stop dying because I'm sick of watching this. But
You're
that
like,
it
wait till I
really
get Mortal
ramps up
Kombat.
there. But some of the pacing was just kind of off also. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of things.
Yeah.
There's some fetch missions that were just super lame throughout the game. So again, it's a mediocre game.
Yeah.
The first two were really good, if not even great. This one was very mediocre. They tried to do all of these different things and they just didn't do them really well. And so, all things considered, uh, I probably put 15 hours or so, maybe 20, and that was enough. I'll probably never go back and play it, but again, I'm still glad I finished the story. I just wish they would have done it a little bit cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I think for me, and here's the thing, dear listeners, a little bit of fun history for y'all. Tomb Raider is one of the staples of my gaming childhood. I played through Tomb Raider 1 through 3, up through Chronicles and Revelations growing up on PC, back when I was a PC gamer. And so I love this series. I love this character. And when they rebooted it, I was like, I love this even more because this is just more realistic. It's more grounded. It makes more sense. And so Tomb Raider, the 2013 reboot, and Rise of the Tomb Raider are some of my favorite games of all time. Just, I love those games. This game, I honestly didn't like it. I really just, it's one of the things, like you said, the pacing in the game is just off. It's so inconsistent. And my thing is, and I think I said this in the group earlier, this is why they needed to keep Brianna Pratchett as the writer, because the story, it seems almost like they kind of got some of the cliff notes from the past two games and then tried to write a story based off that, and it doesn't work. I think the way that they presented Lara was not very well done. Some of the interactions between her and Jonah are actually really good. I like how they got deeper into that. But even Dr. Dominguez, I didn't buy him as the leader of Trinity when they first introduced him and were trying to explain how he's a leader of Trinity, but he's also from Paititi and he's the leader of the cult. And I'm like, wait, what? How does that work? And I did some digging, and it makes more sense if you find certain documents and audio things in the game. But I'm like, you left integral story elements out of the game, or at least out of the main part of the game, and relegated it to side stuff. Like, that's not good writing. You cannot do that.
And the
Destiny
other games
already
didn't
tried
do
that.
that. And the other games
They
didn't do
didn't.
that. And
Yeah.
so to switch that up in the third installment
Exactly.
wasn't the way to go about it.
Not at all. It makes for a very just confusing plot. Now I will say this.
How do you feel about when you had to go back and you played as kind of kid Lara?
I thought it was fine. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is like Uncharted where you play as a little baby Drake, you know.
Sure.
He wasn't really a baby, but I mean, I thought it was cool. Anytime like you allow me to go back and kind of get a little more history behind some of my favorite characters, I'm totally okay with that. They usually don't bother me too much. And plus I thought it was cool getting to walk around Croft Manor. What are some other things? We're talking about the story. I thought the visuals were kind of inconsistent at times. There's parts where the game looks just jaw-dropping gorgeous, and there's other parts where it's like, wait, am I playing the same game? Like, I don't know. It seemed kind of off base. I will say my favorite thing about the game, though, are the challenge tombs. Like, oh my gosh. Puzzles in that and how tense they get. Easily the best in the series. That's the highlight of the game right there, is those challenge tombs. But as far as everything else goes, well, no, the stealth combat was really cool. I did like that. I thought the combat was a little bit better in this one, and the stealth stuff was a lot of fun. But
how about that Jaguar fight?
Dude, the Jaguar fight was just so tense.
That was
part of me
too.
hated it. The other part of me, I was like, I love this. Like, it was, they managed to kind of like spice up the gameplay a little bit. You know, I was reading reviews earlier today, and people were saying like, oh, they didn't innovate and stuff or change it up enough. I'm like, did we play the same game? Like, I feel like they did do that a little bit, you know, enough to where at least I was pleased, but I guess that wasn't true for everybody else. But yeah, overall, here's the thing. If this game would have come out first, fine, whatever. But it's the last in the series. It's supposed to end on a high note. It's supposed to resolve a lot of the main issues, but the way that they close off certain story threads, the way that they get rid of Trinity as a whole as an organization is just completely lazy in their writing. And it just, I didn't really like this game, you know. I'll still play through it again because I'm like, it's Tomb Raider. It's just, I enjoy Tomb Raider. But yeah, at least it's better than Angel of Darkness. Am I right?
I don't know.
Nobody remembers that game. Yeah, no one remembers that.
I've dabbled in some, I think it was maybe Tomb Raider 2 on PlayStation 1. And I couldn't get out of like the first area. I think there's like a tiger that's around or something like that.
Yep.
And you're trying to, and I don't think I ever got out of that area. And so I'm like, well, apparently I'm not good enough for this game. And then I went back to playing probably a sports game. That's like all I played back then.
Yeah, the early Tomb Raider games were extremely obtuse with a lot of their puzzles and stuff. So yeah, don't feel bad. But yeah, no, Angel of Darkness is just real quick. It's basically it's the game in the series that we all try to forget ever happened because it just
what system was that on?
PC and PS2, I think. PS2 and Xbox. So not worth checking out. Trust me, not worth checking out. So this is the part we're going to get into spoilers here. We're going to dive deep into the themes of the game, talk about spoilers and all that fun stuff, which I think we might have covered a few already. But if you care about spoilers at all, dear listeners, or you want to play the game or anything like that and you don't want any bit spoiled, this is the part where you pause the podcast, go play the game, come back, and all that stuff. So again, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Here we go. So some of the things we got to talk about in this game, I mean, despite us not necessarily enjoying the game for the most part, there's still some decent themes in here that we can definitely tackle. And I think one of the big ones that, especially if you look online, is this theme of obsession. You know, in this, Lara is trying to follow her father's journal to kind of vindicate his name and bring honor back to the Croft name and really just kind of stick it to Trinity for really just robbing her of her dad. And but when you play the game, you get more backstory into what it was like for Lara as a kid to see her parents kind of come into conflict because her father is so obsessed with finding this treasure to the point where it drives his wife and even Lara away to a degree, and it ultimately ends in his death because it gets too dangerous. You find through an audio log or some kind of document that Trinity tries to recruit Lara's dad, but he says no, and then he's about to expose him, and then that's when the whole discrediting campaign comes out, and then he gets killed by an assassin. And so, but you see this obsession start manifesting itself with Lara too in a couple different ways, to where you really see, especially in the first hour of the game, when she takes the dagger without even really thinking about it. And understandably, she's trying to keep it from Trinity, but at the same time, it has an adverse effect on those around her, much like how her father's actions have an adverse effect on those around him. Mm-hmm. So, Adam, man, what did you think about this theme of obsession in Shadow of the Tomb Raider?
Yeah, I think, again, looking at the story from the first one in the trilogy to the last one, just the evolution of that. And again, thinking about how even in our own lives, there are things that at the start we're like, okay, what's going on here? But then we can become obsessed with them. You definitely see that with Lara's story. Because, I mean, she's out, even in the first one, kind of following in her dad's footsteps, kind of being this explorer. And then all of a sudden as she finds out more information, it's no longer just kind of wanting to follow in dad's footsteps and kind of maybe get some answers. There's that deep obsession with it. And, in the first one, she has so much struggle killing her first person. Again, I've talked about it already, just that emotional scene of like, what did I just do? But then you get at the end where it's like, she's so obsessed. It's kind of, I'm going to do what I think is important and to get what I want, irregardless of what happens, not only to those around me, in regards to killing people, but even to the culture and the community. They tried to, at different times, try to redeem some of that with helping putting certain people in place, but just a lot of obsession in regards to, again, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think so often, again, how those things play out in Adam's own life. Like when you begin talking about obsession, okay, whether that's even in something as simple as wanting to play a certain video game, I'm dwelling on it constantly. I'm reorganizing my day to add time, things that aren't inherently bad, but I become obsessed with them at times to where I'll either be short with Hannah, I will be, I won't be serving her in a way that I should. I'm just doing things to please her, to hopefully get her to allow me to do something that I want to do later. And so, and again, and even seeing the ripple effects of that, and not always even being aware of that. There are probably times where I'm so caught up in Adam's world and what Adam wants that I'm not recognizing the devastating effects that it can have on the people around me. Not even just Hannah and Rim, but coworkers, students in my dorms, extended family members. And so I think there's some great warning, again, not being like that's not what the game meant, when they did this, but again thinking, okay, how do we apply these? How do we think through these themes from a Christian worldview? Just being aware of how, we also get obsessed with certain things. Now, for us, it's not figuring out what happened to our dad in this situation and some crazy magical story or whatever, but we see these things fleshed out in small ways in our lives. But and the small things need to be addressed just as much as the big things. And so, just being aware, okay, am I approaching this in an appropriate way, or am I now being not even, I don't want to say obsessive compulsive, but just obsessive over it, where I am mistreating, misloving those around me? I think is some good application of, as we discuss, this idea of obsession.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, you said in your own life, and even in my own life as well, it's that same thing that you brought up. You're short with your wife, or you're short with just anyone and everyone. That's how I get when it comes to platinum trophies. Hence the reason Ecclesiastes is hitting me so hard, is because it's like, is it worth it to chase after this, to strive after this, when it's becoming a problem for everybody else, including myself.
Mm.
So that's good stuff. And it really lends into Lara being really kind of consumed with revenge. You know, she really wants to bring Trinity down, to just crush anyone and everyone associated with them. And to the degree where it almost, and I don't know if you caught this or not, or maybe I'm off base and you can let me know. It almost kind of blurred the line of what makes Lara different than Trinity at this point. And I think we might have covered this too with Rise of the Tomb Raider. But it was an interesting dynamic with how, you know, Trinity is going to do things their own way. If someone gets in their way, they're going to kill them. If someone gets in Lara's way, she's going to kill them, you know, unless it's someone she deems as good or something. And it's this kind of dangerous fluctuating of morality that isn't even a standard, really, of, you know, I'm the judge. I'm the one that gets to choose who's good or evil. You know, what did you think of that? Did you think they kind of made the distinction between good and evil in this game hard to figure out, or was that something?
In this game, it's been more than even in the other ones. Again, even going back to the very beginning with the box and the dagger, and kind of, okay, you have, and I don't know if you kind of got, okay, you got this native culture who has been defending X thing forever, and all of a sudden here comes white savior complex in some ways, and that just fuels into, okay, should she have like stayed away? Could we have trusted that they could have done it? Again, you got all those demon people on the mountain who are doing a pretty good job. Does she feel like she needs to do this when and again, she was used in some form or whatever, but I think definitely in regards to just kind of that, kind of what you said in regards to just the killing people, and she was going to do what was helpful for her, and you didn't see a ton of sacrifice really in hers. And I mean, I'll talk about some later in regard to kind of being your own god and Laura having some opportunities there, but I can kind of hold off on that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that was the thing that I kind of wrestled with is, and this is honestly one of the problems I had with the game was the way that they presented Lara as, you know, it's like, is she the bad guy? Because it kind of seems like she's as much part of the problem as Trinity is. And it made me wonder, even after playing the intro the other night on Twitch, you know, if Lara just stayed away, would that city still be standing? You know, not that it necessarily matters per se because it's a fictional world, but in terms of the narrative, it made me wonder, you know, well, if Trinity wasn't going to find this dagger in the first place, or if they're going to have a really hard time to find it anyway, like what would have happened, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Lara's consumed with vindicating her dad, getting revenge on Trinity, and it's all that. And really, I think we as Christians, that's the hard thing that I always wrestle with when it comes to Christianity and our beliefs that, you know, we're not to take revenge. You know, we're not to take vengeance ourselves. That's God's role. That is His doing, and it's a hard thing to do. You know, even as someone like me, and of course I'm a guy. It's ingrained in my DNA. When something is wrong, I want to go fix it. When someone's wronged me, I want to take care of business. But man, as a Christian, you can't really do that all the time. You kind of have to, I mean, granted, if there's an immediate threat to your family, you do step up as a man and defend. But man, when someone wrongs you, it's that whole turning the other cheek thing, not to be a doormat. But I mean, there's, I don't know. If I was in Lara's shoes, I don't know how I would handle this, you know. Granted, I'm not near as brave as she is to go after this giant organization that's kind of like the Illuminati. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point.
Well, it kind of makes
but
me think, like, even as you get to that point of like, what would have happened if she didn't go there? Uh, it's like I'm trying to think how to say this. Like, so often we feel like we are more important than we are. That if we don't do something, God's purposes can't be completed. And so thinking Laura, okay, there's probably certain things where it's like, oh, if I don't save the day, then of course the world is going to end. And so, and I don't want to downplay, like, God has chosen to use us, and that's by His grace. And yes, we're all made in the image of God, and therefore important, and so on. Like, I'm not talking about that part, but just sometimes the view that we get of it's up to me to save this person. It's up to me to, and so we go out of our way to do certain things that we think are helpful, but actually become destructive. And God may even use us in the end to help that. But sometimes it's like we need to let God be God, and we need to play our role as assigned instead of like going out of the way and at times causing more destruction than actually being helpful.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's actually a really good segue into this other theme of kind of really taking on the role of God ourselves, being our own God, so to speak. Because one of the things in the game is if you have both the dagger and the silver box, it allows you to take on the power of a God, so to speak, and reshape the world as you see fit by your own standards. You can create the world exactly how you want if you have the dagger
That sounds
in the
horrible.
box.
I want to know how that works
Yeah.
because that sounds messy.
Doesn't it though? Doesn't it? And especially if you play through the end of the game, you see how messy it gets.
Yeah.
Gosh, dude, Mayan culture is so it creeps me out. It really does. I honestly had a hard time playing this game the first time through because the game genuinely creeped me out.
There's some darkness in that. You see a lot of
really
darkness.
is. There really is. So, man, when it comes to this theme of being our own God or playing God, so to speak, you said you had some things you wanted to bring up. So let's dive into it, man. What do you got?
I think that okay, so these people, Trinity was wanting to create the world in the way that they view. Apparently, things weren't going the way that they thought they should. And so they thought that their ways were better. And then some of the flashbacks that you see throughout the game with Lara is okay, she's missing her family. She's trying to put these pieces together. And then there's all, she's getting these items. She has some opportunity to take control if she wanted. She could have taken over Trinity and fallen. She could have, in many ways, kind of been tempted to recreate the world in the way that she wanted, including bringing people back, not having her dad die, not having her mom die, kind of bringing her family. And that's some of the things that you see that she kind of lets go towards the end of the game is like she kind of let those memories go and was able to just release them and be, joyful and happy and all those things. And so I think at the same, we don't have a box and a dagger, but there's times where we play those games with God and just how we question again, not questioning and Lord help me understand, but we question them with some entitlement saying, Lord, what are you doing? Are you sure that this is the right answer? And I don't mean to be insensitive, so I hope the listeners can hear me right on this, but there's times when God has taken someone from us too early, or someone has been sick, or adversity hits in life, and we're thinking, Lord, what in the world are you doing? Like, let me take the reins for a second. Let me take control because the way that things are playing out just do not seem like the gracious, loving God, especially even to believers. As believers, I think that entitlement word comes because we think, Lord, we're the ones serving you, and life doesn't seem to be going our way. And so we get to that point where we want to, you know, we have the temptation to want to play God. We want to say, Lord, and that plays itself out in different ways. Maybe it results in a lack of prayer and trusting the Lord in His sovereignty and in the way that He's working. I mean, in me and Hannah's life, we recently, miscarried. And there's times where I'm thinking, Lord, what is going on? Like, is this really the best thing for our family? But knowing His word and trusting that and allowing God to be God and me to be the clay. The potter is, the clay doesn't look at the potter and say, what are you doing when you created me? He's got the control, but trusting Him because we know that He is for us. It's for our good, all discipline, uh, whether that's in a response to sin or just discipline to grow us more in His likeness, even through life circumstances, which is a hard truth at times. But allowing God to be God, and that again, that doesn't mean we can't question in certain ways. Lord, help me to understand why did this happen? Not why, how dare you, but why, help me understand. And if God is gracious to allow us to see that, great, but we're still not even entitled to that answer. We are told to trust God. We were entitled to death, and He gave us so much more than that. And so, learning to trust in His sovereignty and His knowledge and wisdom and His goodness for us, even when we don't, And I think you see a little bit of that towards the end. And I know you even talk about some of that with like Jonah and Lara's relationship. If you could go back and reshape certain things, would you? And Jonah's like, no, like the world's not perfect, it's messy, but
Mm-hmm.
I love the way it is, and I think that's life is messy, life is hard, there is difficulties, but God is still in his throne and he is working these things out, and doesn't mean that God is satisfied with the sin in the world, but God has not forgotten us either, and God is a God of justice, and he's going to bring those things. So allowing God,
Mm-hmm.
kind of talking about the revenge, allowing God to bring his vengeance in certain things,
Yeah.
or to bring comfort in other harder situations. And so I think some of that, I think again, applying the game to how there are a lot of people, if they were in this situation, they'd say, okay, let me have that dagger in the box. I've got some things I want to change,
Right.
instead of
Yeah.
trusting that God knew what he was doing when he did it.
Yeah.
Even if we don't like it, even if we don't understand, even if it's a really hard thing for us to understand, knowing that God has worked a lot of good out for us, even in the midst of hard times. I think of Joseph. And who would have ever thought throwing a person into a pit and then selling him to slavery would be used for God's good? But even Joseph responds like, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good," and so
Yeah.
allowing him to bring that out in our lives.
Yeah. Finding purpose in our trials, man. Yeah, straight out of James. Um, one of the things, and this is honestly a common theme we see a lot of, at least in regards to sci-fi, those kind of stories and stuff. TV show The Flash experiments with this a lot. Barry Allen constantly going back in time trying to fix things or fix things to how he thinks they should be,
Yeah.
and it always winds up messing something else up. Sometimes even 10 times worse than what it originally was. And it's got me thinking, I think we're all obsessed with this idea of being our own standard. We don't being this entity to where we don't have to answer to anybody except ourselves. And it's it just doesn't work that way, you know? I think of Job, that whole story about how, you know, just he loses everything. And when he gets to a point where he starts to question God, like it kind of starts getting to a point where he's starting to demand answers from God. God shows up and is like, okay, where were you when the stars were formed? Where were you when the sun was told where to go, when to rise and when to set? Surely if you're going to address me like a man, then you can definitely stand up and give a response. And it's really this moment where it's like God is straight up telling them, like, you can't even comprehend the things that are set in motion, the things that I am sustaining, the things that I am planning, the things that I am orchestrating, the things that are ultimately for your good. You wouldn't even be able to comprehend it because you're not me.
Yeah.
And it's hard to hear because we want to kind of not buff up, but like puff up our chest to God. I'm like, of course I can handle it, of course I can, but it's that we can't. We don't, because we're sitting here trying to change it. We're sitting here trying to take God's role and tell him we know better when we don't. We don't. That's the whole thing that God's getting at there is like you don't know better. You don't. He's not mean when he says it. Definitely firm is what I would say his response to Job is, but it's like we can't sit here and think that we know better. I mean, look at the Flash. Okay, another example. Look at the Flash. Every single time he went back into the past to try and fix something, it screwed 7 other things up. And that's exactly how we are. And that's exactly what I find kind of ironic about Dominguez wanting to take this dagger in the box to reshape the world. It's like, it's not going to be the way you think it is.
Yeah.
It might be a perfect world to you, but to other people, it might be a personal hell.
Yeah.
We can't play God. We can't. We got to let God be God, and we got to realize that our ways are not his ways. His ways are higher, and they don't make sense. They don't. And that's frustrating sometimes. It's absolutely infuriating sometimes. but it's in those moments where, you know, you got to have faith. And I know that, like, for some listening, that makes absolutely no sense, especially given some of the recent tragedies that happened around the world this past week. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I understand it all, because I don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, that we got to have faith. That's what's going to get us through the darkness. You know, God is in control ultimately, even though it may not seem like it sometimes. He is. But I don't always know what that means. And I'm not going to sit here and try to be something I'm not, because it doesn't work that way. And that's kind of what I appreciate about the end, how Lara kind of released that power, really. And in a way, she kind of let go of her past a little bit and let go of that obsession. And so that was kind of cool to see at the end. But with what little time we've got, one other thing I do want to talk about that you brought up is the dynamics between Jonah and Lara's relationship that I thought was kind of nice. You know, I always enjoyed this kind of aspect about these games, at least in Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then even more so in this game, you get to see more Jonah. And it just kind of I don't know, man. There's something about friendship there to be said. How they always have each other's back. One of the things that really struck a chord with me, was the opening scene at the end of it, when Lara is trying to tell Jonah, like, we have to go stop Trinity. Like, this is my fault. I need to make atonement for it. I need to try and fix it. And Jonah's just like, this isn't about you. Stop being so self-absorbed. We can help people right now. We can do good right now. And once we do that, then we'll go stop Trinity. Which I have my own thoughts on that, but if you want to know about it, we'll get to it later. We're kind of running out on time. But in the next cutscene, you kind of see Jonah thinking through it. You see Lara staying determined, and then they have this kind of warm conversation around a campfire. So no pun intended on warm. But you see Jonah like, you know what? You're right. I get it. I know why you're trying to do this. I'm with you. I've been with you this whole way. I'm not going to stop now. Let's get after it. Let's have each other's backs. And I'm like, this is cool. You guys are like brothers and sisters. This is really cool. And it just got me thinking, like, this is how we as Christians should be. I mean, there's times where we're going to like blow up on each other. There's times where we're going to be angry with each other. But we still got to have each other's backs. You know, you gotta, you know, it's like that verse. I can't remember where it is, but it's like, love covers a multitude of sins. There's times where we take offense when none is given, and there's times where we give offense and none's taken. But through it all, though, there's a multitude of sins that love can cover, that we as Christians can take the blow, take it on the chin, so to speak, and continue to love our brothers or sisters in Christ, even though they may have just blown up on us or started a Mayan apocalypse. You know, I don't know. But
Yeah.
Adam, what do you think about this theme of friendship that we see in the game between the two?
Yeah, again, I think because they've been together from the beginning. I think even in the second one, there's a lot of really good moments where it's like she could have left Jonah, Jonah could have left her at different times, but yet they keep coming back for one another. And so not letting that other one fall behind. Again, there's some analogies there, again, to Christian brotherhood and sister. Like, you see someone falling behind their faith and they're looking and running in the wrong direction. Do we chase after them? Do we leave to go find them? Different things like that. I think there are different moments in this one where they kind of do something with Jonah's character where he's kind of like not available to be involved, and so she's kind of out going rogue. And then he comes back more towards the end to be a little bit more involved. But I think it's a they've been through the trials together, and they're stronger through that. And again, as I kind of talked a little bit earlier about having people you're walking through life with, you know, they're both better because of the example that the other one's been at different times, and going through things together. You know, if they didn't go through the first game in the island together, if they don't go through some of these Soviet things together at the camps in the second one, they don't go through the third things as well. But yet there's trust built. They're able to disagree, and you see Jonah disagreeing with Lara and some stuff, you see Jonah disagreeing with Lara and some stuff. But when you've been walking life with them, you can even disagree and that be okay. Again, another really hard thing for our culture is disagreeing. But like, me and you, like, we agree on a ton of things, but there's some things in life that Logan and I disagree with. But that's okay because we've gone through life together. That doesn't define Logan. It doesn't, certain things I believe don't define Adam to Logan. It's all of the other things, walking through life, encouraging one another, our walks with the Lord, the way we love our wives. All of these things we see that are more priority than even our disagreements. But if you're not walking through life with people, which is why it's so easy to get angry at people on Twitter that you don't know, there's no history there. There's no walking through life together. Being able to do that in community with those around you, having those close friendships, they allow you to go through those hard things a lot better. Because, like you said, it's a lot easier for me to give grace to someone who I know and I love and I care and I've walked through life with. Someone I don't know who, yeah, I love them as, again, a co image bearer of God, but not as much as I love other people that I know well. And so it's hard to give those people grace. And so, um, even though I should be willing to. So I don't know. I think you just see some of those things coming out in that relationship with Lara and Jonah.
Yeah, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, dear listeners, if you have played Shadow of the Tomb Raider, let us know some of your thoughts. Let us know what you think about some of these themes we covered, and maybe let us know some of the ones that we might have missed. As always, let's keep that conversation going through the various social media platforms that we have. Now, before we go, two things. One, there's a section on here. I'm going to do this new with some of the episodes we do where we focus on games. There's going to be a relevant reading section in the show notes. So if you want to read some of the articles we used to kind of help give us information about this episode here, you can check those out on your show notes. Go read them on your spare time if you're interested. If not, they're there for your perusal. Second, this is our episode where we thank our patrons over on patreon.com/thereforumgamers, our lovely, lovely, dear patrons over there. These are the folks who support us, who help keep the show running. Those folks are, we want to thank you guys, by the way. Thank you for your continued support. We want to thank you guys. Those folks are Alex Castellanos, Alex Hooper, Austin Goudreau, Caleb Schmidt, Christopher Commander, Code Missing, Cody Dean, Colin Gregory, David Skinner, Derek Smith, Eric Bryant, Gareth Evans, Jake Walker, Jeff Wofford, Jesse Penu, Josh Broccolo, Luke Kelly, Luke Strain, Mark Fromy, Matthew White Chocolate McDougal, Micah Hendrick, Michael Toller, Ryan 1701E, the Jet Islander podcast, Wesley Ray, dude, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Xavier Medina, Zach Buchholz. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support over on patreon.com. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us keep doing what we're doing here. And all sorts of fun stuff. Adam, man, before we let the dear listeners go, we got to do some recos, man. What should the dear listeners go check out?
A great book, I've mentioned it on Podcast Pass, that speaks to a lot of things that I've talked about even tonight, of like God's sovereignty and difficulties and adversities in life. A Crook in the Lot by Thomas Boston, Puritan. You can find it on Banner of Truth, different places. There was a free Kindle version with like modern English that I read, that I tried the old one. I'm like, this is too hard. So I read the modern version. I don't know if it's still free on Kindle, but it was when I got it. And man, I don't say this too often about a lot of books because I'm just not that type of guy, because I'm not too deep of a thinker at times. But man, this is a book that I say a lot of believers need to read. I'm not going to say everybody needs to read every book, but this is just one of those books that had, some of it's because of probably life circumstances that we've been going through, but it was an excellent book on dealing with adversity, difficulties, suffering in the Christian life. I cannot recommend it enough. So that would be one of my recos.
Right on, right on. As far as my recos are, just follow us on the social medias, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, TRG
Is that
Podcast.
a reco or a demand?
It's a please do this so I feel better about myself sort of thing. I want to talk to people, please. I want to make it seem like I have friends. I'm kidding. But no, for real, like, especially with Instagram just starting up, like, I really do want to kind of connect with the community more through that way. Just have some laughs on a few different posts and things like that. So, you know, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. I'll have links to all that stuff in the show notes, so definitely go check those out and interact with the show a different way. Facebook group, if you're not in there already, you know, if you want to have more discussions and things like that. But also my other recommendation, play the games that you want to play. Yeah, play the games you want to play. You know, just because your friends, let's say your friends are digging Anthem right now and you played the demo and you're like, I'm not really feeling it. Don't feel bad about playing something else, okay? Don't feel bad about playing The Bachelor, the video game, all right? It's okay. It's okay. Play the games that you want to play them, as the folks over at Coin A Geek say. Play them, and enjoy them. As always, though, thank you for checking out this episode of The Reformed Gamers. If you like what we do here on the show and you would like to lend your support financially, you can head over to patreon.com/The Reformed Gamers. Support as low as $1 a month helps us just keep doing what we're doing. And it also gets you some sweet perks like early access to the show, bonus episodes, access to our Patreon Discord, a lot of different things. So head over to patreon.com/The Reformed Gamers to consider lending your support. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We get it. You can support us through other ways by following us on YouTube and Twitch. The Reformed Gamers will pull up on either one. Like I said earlier, Twitch archive will have 2 videos up of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So if you want to check the game out for yourself, you're more than welcome to do that there. You can head over to the website, thereformedgamers.com, for show notes, articles, book reviews, things like that. And then, like I said, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Dear listeners, until next time, GG and amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Reformed Gamers. This show is brought to you independent and ad-free thanks to our lovely dear patrons over on patreon.com. The following people are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we'd like to especially thank them. Those people are Alex Castellanos, David Skinner, Eric Bryant, Gareth Evans, Luke Strain, the Jet Islander Podcast, and Wesley Ray. Thank you so much for your continued support on Patreon, and thank you for encouraging my addictive habit of getting platinum trophies. GG and amen.